It's fun to watch teachers work together. There's nothing better than watching collaboration by professionals. And any research will tell you that's the best way to learn, through a collaborative inquiry into how do we get better at this job.
I never want to go back to single me in a classroom. I am better with my team.
It's not all on you. There's a team of people to help support you. So that's what I really enjoy about team teaching.
I have taught for 10 years, a solo English teacher, and when I moved on to the teams, I knew that there was no other way to teach. This had to be the way for me to teach going forward.
In education today, we ask single teachers to be all things to all people at all times. And that's, quite frankly, unsustainable and unmanageable.
You feel that pressure of now I have 150 students just by myself that I need to get to know. I need to be able to, build a personal relationship with these kids so that I could better help them.
It is humanly impossible to walk into a classroom as an isolated adult and look at all of these kids and expect that you are going to know everything there is to know to support everything those kids need.
While the work of a teacher has become more complex and demanding, the workforce model for education remains unchanged. One teacher, one classroom.
It's a lonely world to walk in your classroom, close the door, teach for 50 minutes, wait 7 minutes, close the door, and do it again.
That routine can sometimes be daunting on top of your other professional responsibilities that you have to do as well.
This was the hardest job that I've ever done. It was incredibly rewarding, but the complexity of the task of being a teacher is absolutely mind-bending.
With this traditional model in place, the education system does not reliably deliver quality learning outcomes and experiences for nearly enough people and communities.
We saw too many of our students not walking across our stage. 70% graduation rate. That needed to change.
There's research out there that shows that 40 to 60% of secondary students are disengaged from school.
I started off at a very traditional setting and classroom, and as the years went on, I kept wondering, how do I capture children's attention and make learning really meaningful?
In light of these challenges and outcomes, both new and experienced teachers question whether the job is a viable career choice. This has led to significant teacher retention and recruitment problems.
It is our natural tendency to gravitate towards teams of people to help us solve complex problems. And in the world of education, we have typically prepared our teachers to work in isolation, which is really counterintuitive.
One of the strangest things about being a teacher is the fact that your first day in the job looks remarkably similar to your, say, 3,000th day on the job. There's something broken about that.
We're not facing a teacher supply problem. We're facing a workforce design problem. And if we're not getting the education workforce or the learning outcomes we want, we need to redesign the profession, the workplace, and how we prepare people for both. We need to develop what we are calling the next education workforce.
In the next education workforce, a team of educators is a group of teachers, paraprofessionals, members of the community that are coming together around a shared common roster of students, that they are collectively responsible for the outcomes of those students.
In the next education workforce model, teams are created from a range of educator roles: educational leaders, leaders of teams, schools, and systems; professional educators, which include pre-service, novice, experienced, and specialist teachers; paraeducators, which include instructional assistants, teaching assistants, and other school employees; and community educators, volunteers and other community members whose knowledge and skills complement those of professional educators.
It puts the focus on kids. It builds a better learning environment for them. They now get to take advantage of all the adults that are in that room, no matter who's there, their experience, where they're coming from, more opportunity to have a teacher that actually looks like them. There's all kinds of possibilities that open up the minute that you say, we're going to break this one teacher, one classroom model.
For a student, the traditional classroom typically provides a direct relationship with just one professional educator, their classroom teacher. They might have contact with other adults and support personnel, but their learning typically happens in a silo. Students in Next Education workforce models are surrounded by a team of educators and benefit from relationships with multiple caring adults.
When we really talk about equity, when we look at what the needs of kids are, when a kid comes in and they're hungry or they need something else or they need somebody that can support socio-emotional learning, I need a different kind of adult. But we can't get to this idea of equity unless we really, really start to think about who those adults are, how they work together, what the learning environment looks like, what the working condition looks like. That's how we're going to get to equity.
The team-based model truly empowers educators because when done well, they, as a team, have way more control.
If teachers are working together, they're more apt to have a larger job satisfaction, but more importantly, they create better learning experiences.
I, as a teacher, become even more inspired in my own content area for my students, and the students then feed off of that excitement, they feed off of that passion, and then we see that in the work that they produce as well.
So I could be creative in how I got kids to learn things, how we were able to do these projects with kids, how we were able to give them a non-traditional path to education. So it's not just sitting on the floor listening to a teacher, or sitting in your desk listening to a teacher.
I think that's the biggest draw to this model is as a teacher, I can focus on what I'm good at and what I bring to the team.
This allows that group to really deliver on the promise of deeper and personalized learning, not just for some kids, but for all kids.
What is deeper learning? Well, deeper learning is taking something that goes well beyond the surface level of a content. So an example of that would be in math. If we're learning about exponential functions, deeper learning is how does that actually apply in the real world?
It would be making that connection with the real world and what you are interested in already. When they can see this working outside of the classroom, then they get to take ownership of the things that are happening in the classroom.
The one thing that exists in our world that is the equalizer is education. And so we have to create the model for all students to be able to reap the benefits of coming to school. You can't let them slip through the cracks. And I think this model, more than anything, makes sure that doesn't happen.
We obviously are concerned about academic achievement, but we're also thinking about outcomes for the whole child, social and emotional learning outcomes.
When they're just out in a traditional setting, maybe they have things happening at home that we don't know about, and then that's why they're not doing their homework, or maybe that's why they're not attending, or maybe something else is happening and their behaviors are acting out.
I love talking to friends and family because they're like, well, I hated school for this reason, and I don't want my kid to go to public schools for this reason. And I'm like, okay, all of the reasons you just listed are what we are actively trying to change. We are trying to make it more engaging. We are trying to make it personalized.
When the students know and understand that they have 4 teachers working together for their benefit, then I think the students respond to that.
We continue to survey our families and ask them what do they want for their children. The resource that they want most is their children to be surrounded by caring adults. And that is exactly what the Next Education Workforce is all about.
We'll know that Next Education workforce models are successful when teachers are remaining in their jobs.
Prior to this model, teachers were leaving, once they hit their 3rd year or once they hit their 5th year. So the hope is we will see some longevity of teachers staying in the field of education because it is not all on you. You do not have to be the lone expert anymore. You can have that shared expertise through your group.
When educators are unambiguously getting better outcomes for students.
Our grades were around 65% what we call success rate, which is a credit attempted, credit earned. And so we started adopting this model, and by having multiple teachers in a room, by having the shared roster, our success rate has climbed well over 80%.
Increased academic achievement, but also larger whole child measures.
They're so excited to learn from their peers, to learn from teachers, to have these experiences where they can learn not only the academic skills, but the soft skills. That's going to take them so far in life.
They are excited to come to school because, quite frankly, their attendance rates are through the roof.
Chatter means thinking. And asking of questions means thinking. And when students are doing that, their wheels are turning, and that's the beauty of it.
There's lots of evidence that would tell us that this is the kind of working condition, workplace that people want to work in.
This work is hard, but it's incredibly important. And quite frankly, there's no better time to do this work than right now.